Check, check, check. Check, check.
Testing on y'all like you ain't got good sense. Come on. Long day?
Not as bad, man. Josh and Randy's gone.
Good Tuesday evening, everyone, and welcome into the Sports Blitz Lake Martin Sports Roundup Show, live on location at JR Sports Farm Grill, as we are each and every Tuesday from 6 to 7. And again, we're here at one of our favorite places, JR's 256-329-2328. Rainy Tuesday to start the day, but as it progressed, got a little sunnier, and hopefully we're able to avoid a couple of the storms tonight. A lot of things happening in the downtown Alexander City area. I'd be remiss if I didn't promote the back-to-school event that is happening with Downtown After Dark with Main Street. Bree Smith, the executive director for Main Street, has orchestrated a great event today, so make sure you go out and check them out. They're giving away school supplies. Coffee Corner is over there as well, providing some free coffee and some snacks. I went over there a little bit before the show and got a couple cupcakes, and it will carry me over a little bit as we continue tonight's show. But again, make sure you go out and support them. And again, this is I guess it's the last Thursday. Yes, I want to make sure I said that right. The last Thursday last Tuesday of the month, they'll be doing Downtown After Dark. And so, again, we appreciate all the work that Main Street and the other merchants and businesses within the area are doing to provide some attention and some events for the area. But Adam, coming off a big week here in the Alexander City area, the Chamber of Commerce had its 5th annual Sun Festival event. Very pleased with the turnout that they've had, not only throughout the week with the events that they offered, but for Friday and Saturday as well with band battle and with Moon Taxi. Unfortunately, I was unable to make it Saturday, but from all intents and purposes and from talking to people who were able to attend, and Jacob Meacham, who was on the show a couple of weeks ago to promote it, a lot of outside attention came in. He said anywhere between 400 to 500 kids from the Southeast came in specifically for Moon Taxi. So whenever a little place like Little Alex City gets the opportunity to bring in that type of attention, especially to the downtown area, he's much obliged to us here.
Yeah, definitely. And it goes off to the amount of work that the whole chamber staff have put on throughout this, 9 days, I believe, 10 days?
8 days.
8 days.
Somewhere in there. It's really probably like 10. 2 right before prep and 2 right after getting it done.
Yeah, and the countless number of months it took to prepare for that. I think it's over 50 events. I think it's very successful. Lots of stuff for the kids to do, which is what Alex City really is kind of panning for. So, if you didn't take advantage of the Sunfest events, then, you'll know next year that you got to get your kids out there and enjoy some of this stuff. I mean, like I said, we had the slip and slide thing out here at Strand Park. You had the concert to wrap everything up, of course. You had tons of stuff to do at Wind Creek. Overall, just a very well ran event. I think it's been a success since it first started 5 years ago as well, and it's continuing to grow. So hats off to those guys for the work they put in, because middle of July gets kind of hot. We're outside all day long, makes for some long days. I'm sure they're on vacation this week, if I had to guess, to kind of wrap things up with that. But overall success, and it's nice to have a band like Moon Taxi come in and bring some people from outside of our area and show off some of the businesses and the work that we've done in the downtown area. So overall, I think it's very successful too. I'm sure those guys are excited and glad to have a little break here. But, I'm just excited to see the continued growth of that event.
Yeah, and the thing is, and I've been looking for the right format, and this may not be the right one, but just kind of I do want to throw my 2 cents in. There were some people that were somewhat critical of the band that was brought in and maybe having to pay for alcoholic beverages and not being able to bring your own in. But I will say this, there's not a concert or any event that you go to in another place that you're not having to pay to get in, or you can't bring your coolers in and you're going to pay $10 a beer to go somewhere. And I hate to say beer, but that's what a lot of the conversation was. So I do want to commend what the chamber what they were attempting to do. There was a lot of concern about having an event and tying this into a sports conversation, having events out at the Sportplex, and because that is a children's facility is what a lot of people consider that, and which it is. It is for kids athletics, youth athletics, but having alcohol there was definitely something that was an issue. So they made an attempt to move it to downtown, which Strand Park, which is a lot of where our events are held anyway, and it was an attempt to try to provide some revenue opportunities for the businesses downtown as well, because if you allow people to bring in their coolers, there's already a strain on them anyway because of some things like strain sessions. So we were trying to make sure that there was an opportunity for them to reap the benefits of having people downtown, which is the whole intent of what the Arts and Entertainment District and having something like Strand Park is for. But overall, again, I just want to commend the Alex City Chamber on such a great job, and all of the downtown restaurants and merchants who stayed open a little later, or maybe were out here on Saturday providing food and beverages as well. But kind of transitioning over to, speaking of well-run events, in our next segment we'll bring on Hudson Hinton, who will have his Bridge Builders football camp this Saturday, the second installment of the second installment of that. They had a nice turnout the first time, bringing a few of the Auburn players in, and again, kind of the background on that being is the Bridge Builders have been putting on football camps here for the last, I know at least since I've been doing the show, we've had Hudson on, and so it's always a great time to be able to bring in some former players and some recognizable figures within the area. They had Tyree Gray, they had Michael Geigers, and obviously they brought in Trey Williams and John Franklin and Jason Smith. So it was nice to see that attention and that caliber of athlete and some recognizable names and faces brought into Alexander City, and I'm looking forward to catching up with him and talking about the event this Saturday as well.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned guys like Trey Williams. He's probably going to be one of the better linebackers in the SEC this year. For him to get out here and spend some time with these kids and everything is huge. And I think I touched on before when we first talked with them in the interviews and everything, is people really don't hear about that. They usually hear about if someone gets in trouble and they start judging from that. But just being able or just being nice enough to share some of your time with some of these kids. Now, he don't know any of these kids. I mean, he's from the Mobile area, so I mean, it's just huge that they're able to do that. And I think it's a great way for some of these kids to get some good training and learn some good technique. Because I mean, let's face it, you get through C League football, and I know I did the same thing too. A lot of times you don't really get much technique taught, and it's probably one of the more important sports to have correct technique in, with all the injuries and stuff that you read about these days. So
we're going to follow up to that too.
Yeah,
we're going to have to
that.
talk about that.
Yeah,
I do want to get your thoughts on a recent report that came out today regarding CTE and the NFL. But
yeah.
I didn't mean to cut you.
No. That's what I was
make
going
sure.
into. That's what I was going into. But just hats off to those guys and Tyree for coming back too, because I'm sure he's getting ready for his summer workouts, everything to start too. But just everyone in this community, just be appreciative for these guys, and and if you run into them, go up into them, just tell them thank you. I mean, it's a small thing. They volunteer their time to work with the kids.
Absolutely. Well, that'll take us up to our first break of the evening, and when we return, we'll bring on Mr. Hudson Hinton to discuss his Bridge Builders football camp that will take place this Saturday at the Charles Abeto Sportsplex. More of the Lake Morning Sports Roundup show with Adam and Scott right after this. Welcome back in, and thanks for joining us here on the Sports Blitz Lake Martin Sports Roundup Show. Again, we're live on location at JR Sports Bar and Grill in downtown Alexander City. 256-329-2328 is the number to dial in for them. You can come and get something off of their menu, or you can call the number. Again, that's 256-329-2328, and you can get something delivered to you as well. JR Sports Bar and Grill in downtown Alexander City. We're shifting gears a little bit, bringing on a familiar person to the show and someone who has been very integral in trying to provide some different events and activities for the youth in the Lake Martin area, specifically in the Alexander City area. Mr. Hudson Hinton. Mr. Hinton, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Scott, for having us here.
Yes, sir. If you guys recall, a month or so ago, a month and a half ago, we had a few of the Auburn players as well as former Benjamin Russell Wildcat and current Murray State racer Tyree Gray here to discuss their involvement in the Bridge Builders football camp that took place July the 8th, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
July the 8th. And so we had the opportunity to bring those guys on, and then there was some nice coverage in the local media and bringing them in. And so I just wanted to see if you could give us a little recap of how that event went, and just maybe some things we can look forward to as going into this weekend's event.
Well, the camp was we'll call it a success. You know, the numbers will never get to where I want them to be, but you know, you always try to get better. But the guys came down from Auburn. We had Trey Williams, we had John Franklin III, and we had Nick Riggins, Ruffin,
yes, sir.
The starting safety. And the kids really enjoyed them, and we had a good time. And of course, we had Tyree Gray from Alexander City, and it was a good time. It was a good time. And that's what we try to say. If we can get them out there, they'll have a good time.
Well, let me ask you this, and I know we've discussed it previously, but can you just maybe give a little background again as to how exactly what Bridge Builders is first, and then what the concept behind it was, and how you guys realized that this was an avenue that you guys could take to try to provide some things for some of the youth here?
Scott, if you ever heard or read the poem Bridge Builders, that's exactly what it was about. It was about an old man. He's traveling on a journey,
going a long highway.
On a long highway,
yeah.
And he crossed a canyon, we'll call it. And when he got to the other side, he decided to build a bridge. And another traveler was coming there, well, oh man, you don't have to come this way again. Why are you building this bridge? And he said, it's a young man coming after me, that, you know, it might be some toils and trouble for him. So I'm building this bridge for him. So, you know, I didn't have these opportunities as camp and to meet a lot of college players, NFL players in my time. And we're trying to do that for the kids and giving them somebody to look up to and let them realize that we want you to leave Attic City, but we want you to come back.
Yes, sir.
Bring some back to the city.
Yes, sir. Again, we're here with Hudson Hinton, one of the integral figures, and again providing the Bridge Builders football camp that will be taking place as an annual event, but the second exhibition of this will take place this Saturday. And again, there's a fraternal portion of this, and kind of where you guys have established this coming from. And I had an uncle who was an Omega, and so that's funny that I just now put the two and two together. I don't know if there's even a correlation, but he worked with Oakland Bound at Stillman College, and during the Oakland Bound in the summer, we'd always have to learn some type of poems, one or two poems per summer that we were there. But I remember specifically Bridge Builder being one of those. So I knew right when, I just now got that together. So if you could you maybe elaborate a little bit more too, just on the relationship between your fraternity brothers and how that relationship and being able to get in contact with other people, because I know when we had a couple of players on before, they were saying mainly it was the relationship they had with you being their fraternity brother, and that's kind of how they got involved.
Right, that's exactly it. You know, when they played y'all, we try to get them to come back and do something for the community. A couple of years ago, well, a few years ago, you remember we had Archie Newsom called in, we had Johnny Davis called in, and those guys have gone on and did great things. But you can't forget where you came from. You got to remember, it's all about the kids, because that's the most precious natural resources that we have now, and we can't let them fall by the wayside. You know, Omega Psi Phi's one of our cardinal principles is uplift, and we're trying to uplift the kids and just give them something positive. You know, sports not everything. You don't find any 50, 60-year-old athletes nowadays. But sports is an avenue for them to get an education, to learn leadership, to learn teamwork, to learn self-motivation, self-confidence. And being an official, my background is sports, and people always say that it's all about the sports, but it's not all about the sports. But sports is an avenue to lead you to a lot of more places.
Yes, sir. So again, tying everything back into this weekend's event, time, location, and if anyone hasn't signed up or hasn't registered, can they still do so at the day of?
Okay. The last camp, if you recall, we had kind of an Auburn flavor to that camp. So this weekend, the 29th, we're going to try to have a little Alabama flavor to it. We're going to start pre-registering at 7:30 at the Sportsplex here in Alexander City. The camp will kick off at 8 o'clock. We'll have lunch about 12, and the parents can pick them up. If you came to the first camp, wear your T-shirt to this camp, and it's no charge. If you didn't come to the first camp, it's $10 registration charge. And we're going to have some guys from Alabama. Damian Harris, he's supposed to be here, but, we still got my fingers crossed. But Brad Ford played at Alabama. He will be here. Pierre Gould played at Alabama. He will be here. David Palmer played at Alabama, and he will be here.
Okay. Well, Mr. I can definitely say that if I was a youth and this opportunity was provided to me, I'd want to take and jump on this, because you're right. Not a lot, things like this aren't always available to have the opportunity to speak to someone who, or learn from someone who has direct knowledge of what it's like to be on a collegiate campus or in the NFL. So you mentioned some strong names there, and that's correlates too with the Omega Psi Phi fraternity, and that it's very rich in tradition, and also the pyramid of people who have been Omegas. I think people don't realize the amount of impact that individuals have had, or the success they've had that have been Omegas.
Oh, great. We have some great guys come through the fraternity, and we're still making more. Damian Harris just pledged Omega, and at University of Alabama, Trey Williams, linebacker at Auburn, he just pledged a couple of months ago. So we're still making more good men, and hope to have more in the future.
Yes, sir. So I do want to say, I just got a note. I forgot we are having. It is difficult for us to receive calls in, but what we're going to do is, if they can still call in, David Palmer and Brad Ford, if they can call in to the 7 to 9 show. Right, I'll make sure that our producer knows, and we'll get them piped in through that, and we'll get a time together on that. So,
Scott, I really appreciate what you and Sportsplex do for us, and you give us opportunity to get out in the public, and we appreciate everything.
Yes, sir. Well, Mr. Hinton, we appreciate you joining us today. And again, if you have any questions or anything, is there a contact number they can have?
256-750-1140.
There we go. Again, that's Mr. Hudson Hinton with the Bridge Builders, who will be having their annual football camp, the second installment of this camp. They had the first on July 8th. Great turnout, great response within the community. We're hoping to have that replicated again on Saturday. But we'll go ahead and take another break, and we'll return. Adam and I will be back to discuss some of the local scene, getting prepped for high school football in our area. More of the Late Morning Sports Roundup show right after this. Welcome back in to the Sports Blitz Lake More Sports Roundup show. Guys, the banter in between these segments is fantastic. So one day we're going to have to get Michael to do a best of in between the segments, and just anyway, we may not be able to go back on there after that, but it'll be a lot of fun during that time. But a couple national things where it's kind of slower in our area right now. Next week we will have on a couple of the local teams. We'll have on the swim team, as well as the 8U baseball team that went on to finish 4th in the Southeast Regional in Daphne, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll get the opportunity to catch up with them. But lots happening on the national scene, and I guess since we're in SEC country, we will say we can go ahead. We could get our conversation going about Hugh Freeze and all that. I want to get your thoughts on the whole Ole Miss debacle that's happening right now.
Man, it's just a crazy story. I mean, I really don't know. From what I understand, he was leaking information to about 6 or 7 different reporters and trying to push the story that all of these violations and everything happened under Houston Nutt, under his watch. So the media was taking those stories and playing those for him, and Ole Miss was behind it, and they were trying to get the attention off of Hugh Freeze, who has been cheating since he's been there. We just know this. You're Ole Miss. I'm sorry, but you are. And whenever you do that and people request records, it does like a 10-day span. And in that 10-day span, they found this one phone number that kind of opened up this entire thing. All I got to say is the lawyer, there's probably some young guy back there combing through phone records and trying to work his way up. When he found that, he got a big time.
So this is the thing, right? There was a
he knew. He was like,
a Mississippi State guy who did it. He was working on a book, and they were looking for a conversation between he and a sports reporter, if I'm not mistaken. And then through that, they looked, and so they realized, okay, they ended up, I'm going to say it's like the 20th. They were looking for that conversation. Well, as you said, they had it backdated. Some he asked for a couple of days prior to that. Well, on the 19th, they see this area code that doesn't really match the other ones. It was a short phone call, and then it turns into a plethora of phone calls a habit of those calls that if that were to come out, it would not reflect well on Hugh Freeze or the University of Mississippi. And where's the Mississippi University? I don't know. University of Mississippi. And who cares? It's Ole Miss.
University of Mississippi.
But the thing about it is, Houston Nutt, all of this, when you do wrong by people, it's going to come back on.
Oh, yeah.
Houston Nutt was suing Ole Miss for defamation of character because he was saying basically what you just said. Y'all saying it's my fault, and it's not. I'm trying to clear my name.
Yeah.
Houston Nutt did not want that. He said he didn't want that to come out. He really just wanted Ole Miss to suffer, not necessarily Hugh Freeze. Guy writing the book said, So him and Hugh Freeze's attorney,
he said Klanga.
He calls calls Houston Nutt's attorney, and so he's like, we got him. So they let him know. It's like, hey, all they had to do was apologize. If they had apologized to Houston Nutt, nobody knows this story occurs. Now, that's twofold. Is it good that nobody would have known that happens? It is for Hugh Freeze and Ole Miss, but in reality, that it's damaging, and it's not real. Stuff like this happens all the time. I'm not trying to diminish it and say, whatever.
It shows
he's a family
what
man,
they're trying to do, though,
but
too.
When you project yourself to be a certain way,
speaking of Christian conferences,
if you look at somebody's timeline of their tweets, and every other one is John 3:16, that's going to create even a more. The bubble is going to burst a little harder for you than maybe someone else. So I hate that happened, because I'm not going to jump on. I don't want to jump on Hugh. They've been cheating. I'm glad that Mississippi State's terrible too. I don't really like them either. So I'm sorry to tell you that too. They turned in Cam too. So it's the whole thing. So that's one of the articles I read was basically saying the fact that this was only could have happened in Mississippi. Like what's happening now between Mississippi State and Ole Miss because of the rise of the programs a couple of years ago when Dak was there, and they were both programs in the top 4 coming into the playoffs or the first week of the playoffs. From that point on, there's been this arms war. And so the difference is where a guy with Auburn, Alabama, you might not be recruited. You could go to Auburn and not necessarily have been recruited by Alabama and vice versa. 80% of the kids that are on either one of those rosters was recruited by the other. So it's heavily involved. the donor panel is heavily invested in ensuring that they get the kids that they want in. So it's just been a troubling time. And so now, do you want the job? I guess if you're Les Miles, or I don't know, I don't think he would end up getting the job.
No, he wants
is he
it,
someone
of course he does.
that, I mean, if you're a coach, would you want that?
Here's my question. Why does Hugh Freeze not have an old bat phone? You know, like, why does he not have
Well,
the
he
burner
cleared
beside
some.
him?
He didn't clear that one. It's like he figured
Why would you use
your company phone?
the company
Yeah.
phone when you can get, you probably got 1,000 assistants or
Yeah.
do boys at your wheel? Why not get somebody to pick up one get some prepaid minutes on there or something?
See, that lets me know when people get comfortable.
Yeah, exactly.
People get comfortable.
That shows you he's been getting away with so much other stuff that he was just kind of like, I'm untouchable.
Well, because I mean, he did, and there's no. I said it when it was like when Auburn 2 was good, but at least Auburn had some sustained success, and then kind of elevated themselves up in the recruiting ranks. Ole Miss was never somebody that was finishing in the top 10 or 5. Now they went 3 straight years. They were in the top 5, had the number 1 recruiting class when they signed Kim Deitch. They were dirty, and so when you try to be that way and you don't own up to it, because if you're, it's like Conor McGregor, like you know. Everybody knows.
Eventually, he's going to have to fight him.
Yeah, you got to fight at some point. It's just like, how did you get to this point?
Yeah.
Like, what made you think that you were able to compete with them? So the only way you can get to the same level as them, I hate to say you had to cheat to get there. So like it's the same way. He's go all in where he has to do to win, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's right. And so I hate it happen. I really do. I hate it for Hugh Freeze and his family. I don't necessarily hate it for Ole Miss, but I don't want, his reputation is taking a definite hit. But having said that, I saw an article on AL.com, I think, with like who's going to hire him first, Auburn, Alabama. And so I think it definitely could happen. It wouldn't be Alabama, but I could see him being an offensive coordinator within the next year.
He's going to take a year off. He might do broadcasting for a year or so, and then he'll get back into it. And everybody will forget, and he'll get a big-time job, and we'll keep on with our lives because that's what happens.
Yeah.
If you lay low for a year, stay out of trouble, he's going to come out and talk about his religion and all this kind of stuff like that, and try to make up for it.
Somebody else will do something to make
exactly, and his wife's going to come out and forgive him.
Yeah,
and they're going to try to forget about it. That's what's going to happen. Then he'll be the next Petrino Petrino. I mean.
Oh man, I forget about that.
I mean, that's what we do. We'll jump on this right here. This will be the story up until the season starts because there's nothing else to talk about. And then you'll forget about it, and then he'll just pick back up where he left off at. And he'll go there and he'll cheat and he'll win and do the same
This
thing.
is so SEC though. Like I know it's so Mississippi. Like they were saying, it's so Mississippi, but this is so SEC. Every year there's some scandal that comes out and it distracts everybody. Like you can't. It isn't SEC all season. Unless something happens like this.
Not to go full-blown Bama right here, but this just kind of shows how well of a program that Nick Saban has created and run. Because eventually you're going to get caught, and it's been like almost 10 years now, and there's been not a squeak of anything.
There has been.
That's come to a head.
What's my Bama gear guy?
Anything ever happened with that?
Because y'all shut him up.
Anything ever happened with that?
Yeah, because president of the NCAA worked with who at LSU?
It's because Saban's the GOAT.
Listen to y'all. I'm not disputing that. I mean, it is what it is. But
this shows what kind of program and what he's doing and how. I mean, it's just amazing.
All right. On that note, we're gonna go ahead and take another break here. I'm just terribly disappointed I allowed that opening to occur, but we'll take another break and we'll return. We'll talk a little bit about what we were discussing in the last segment, which was the study that just came out of 111 brains that were donated to research from the NFL, from NFL players. 110 of those tested positive for CTE. So that's a very troubling number, and we'll try to give our thoughts on that when we come back from this break on the Late Morning Sports Roundup show right after this.
All right.
Welcome back into the Sports Late Morning Sports Roundup show. We just finished up a great segment talking about how Alabama invented football. So, again,
invented, they just remixed it, made it better.
Again, we just wrapped up, though, seriously talking about the Hugh Freeze situation. Ole Miss, very troubling for him and his family, but hopefully this will be something they're able to overcome and to get the opportunity to be a coach another time. But as we alluded to heading into the break, NFL released a study, or I don't know if the NFL released a study, but there was a study released today.
They did.
Yeah.
They did. NFL denies the story. They're saying that's a lie.
There was a story, a study that was released today that said out of 111 donated brains of former NFL players, 110 of those tested positive for CTE. For those of you who are unaware what CTE is, it's basically a brain disease that comes from too much trauma.
One, going into it, okay, this I've been thinking about this. We talked about earlier today through text message. How much CTE shows up before is counted as CTE? Like how much CTE shows up in the brain before you know, or before you have any kind of problems with it? You know, because if you just get dinged, then that's one thing. Then it can show up on anybody. Because I mean, I think I got knocked out a couple of times just playing like city league and middle school football, whatever else. So I want to know what the cutoff is for that before it to count. If there's a small trace, okay, he took one. Even say you do get a little bit of a concussion or doing anything, does CTE appear then, or is it just that repeated bashing and hitting on the head? Or what kind of causes that?
Well, I'm almost certain it has, because I know boxers have to have it too, Matt. Like it
got to.
Yeah,
right?
like I'm sure, and that's
soccer players though.
Yeah, I mean, just even like I know several soccer players who had multiple concussions, and you can have, like, I know a couple individually who sometimes you have a conversation with me, you're like, I don't know
if that's
soccer
like or what.
Yeah. Touche. All right, we'll move on from that one. But football related, seriously though, there's no way the NFL almost has to start. Like you brought up a good point, kind of referencing, kind of piggybacking off what you were just saying then is, in high school, if an NFL player, if a player has made it to the NFL, you're looking at a minimum of
half their life.
I mean, like if they're 25, they've been playing since they were freshmen in high school. Yeah, that's
chances are they've been playing since they were. You look at
Pigway.
Outside of our area, they've been playing since they were 5 or 6 years old. But what I was saying though is the study that they don't want to see is how many kids have, or how many brains have traces of CTE of non-professional athletes. If they want to see it, okay, you play middle school ball.
Okay, I got you.
I'm saying if, like, do a scan on my brain, and for the 4 or 5 years that I played, do I have traces of CTE then? Because if that right there starts showing up, and they're saying, okay, kids who just play football sometime in their past for a couple years have it, then that's the study they don't want to see right there, because then you're gonna have everybody stop. Like people
there's too much money for like. There's no way they're gonna allow this to happen. There's
but it's
going
to keep your fringe players from playing. So of course, money's gonna keep these studies from not happening.
The blanks ain't going out there.
Yeah, I ain't going out there because I knew then I was too small.
I think it's gonna have to limit it though, because now we're more educated on the topic. So maybe we're not going to maybe allow our kids. Maybe it's like, all right, maybe if you got the chance to play maybe baseball or basketball compared to football, like maybe that alters a parent's decision, which. Football is more than just the sport itself. Obviously, there's a lot that goes into it in terms of just team building and leadership qualities, yada yada, all that.
You get that in other sports. Do that. It's just football's king around here,
and it's in the South. And so you're right. So if you compared that to, Montana, maybe I'd like to see that too. I'd like state by state basis. Somebody needs to get on that state by state basis of the disease itself too. And it's really troubling. The NFL is in a lot of trouble. And I don't even know how the retired football players had to fight as hard as they did to get the money that they deserved because of this. And so
it's because they knew there was a huge
this
iceberg. You know what I mean? Like
I think this. You said it, but this could be. I'm not say Titanic-ish, but I mean
because I'm interested in seeing is there a way to tell or I guess measure CTE with someone who's alive? I mean, because you all hear about donating their brains, and they find out through that. It's got to be some kind of test or something. Technology will bring it to that point, but I'm curious to see how much CTE shows up in a high school fullback or high school center.
Yeah,
in those short times they play. That's the study they don't want.
That's scary.
You know, like
That's scary,
they ain't thought
man.
about that, and I'm sure the NFL has. I'm sure they're like, okay, we're gonna start fighting this now. We're gonna pay this and keep this low because that's the one that breaks the deal right there. Because one, if my kid wants to play football, and if I have a son that does, then yeah, we're going to look at that, and that's fine. We're going to wait to a certain age. You still teach the game and stuff like that until you get into tackling. But if he's 5'2", 125, we're going to try to persuade him to do something else. No.
Run for your life.
No.
But
I mean,
the business of the NFL itself, and so just tying this into a local level and saying that we have so many kids that, and especially on the youth level, that are starting to get really involved in football. And so, I mean, if somebody legitimately did, even just from City League 7-8-year-old football to a high school senior, if that was as long as you went, that's 8 years, 10 years.
That's a lot of bangs to your head.
And so there has to be, but I mean, everybody. So and then what you're going to say, you have people that are older who are proponents of the game. And definitely, we love football. I'm not questioning that. But they're going to be people who say, I didn't have an issue with it.
Yeah.
So then that's when you're going to, the variable of the position that you play and all. I mean, if you're a linebacker, Ray Lewis, there ain't no way he's not going to have something.
Ain't no way. He's probably covered in it.
It's really not funny, but that was good. But in saying that seriously, though, when you look at it, I mean, the damaging effect of a sport like football on a person's body in general, not even necessarily mentally, like from a physical portion of the brain, but just your body in general. I mean, it's not safe by any means.
Here's the only thing that bothers me about it is these professional athletes that are coming out and they're crying all this stuff now. They knew exactly what they were getting into.
I don't think so, man.
No, dude. That they've been knocked out so many times and playing. You knew if you get knocked out, you know, if you get knocked out and you wake up, you know, what I just did was not good for me. Maybe I shouldn't do that.
I didn't. Okay, I got a limited education because I tried to get out because the only way I'm gonna have my money is if I play pro. I get what you're saying.
Your fault.
But that is. But if my only real way to success is gonna be me being able to go play a professional sport,
then that's the deal you make. So
that
you're gonna
is
live
the deal
with
you make. But if the NFL knowingly knew that this was happening, that's what I think their concern is that clearly, like, it's like, hey, if I told you I can't see, like I'm dizzy, I've had 3 concussions in the last 2 games, y'all gonna have to come get me.
That's the thing that bothers me is if the team doctors knew, because because you can just take this for example. All right, Dale Earnhardt Jr. races NASCAR, whatever else. He had a concussion 3.5 years ago, and he still ain't driving. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. It hadn't been that long, but I mean, it really took him over a year before he got back in the car because he was still having effects from his concussion. You have guys in baseball who get slid into and they get a concussion. They're out 3 weeks, a month. They're on the DL. You got guys getting a concussion playing on a Thursday night. They'll play next Sunday. I mean,
so that's what I think
the problem is.
That's where I want.
It's got to be the doctors, right?
But it's because
the NFL's hit.
I'm getting paid $8 million a year to win 12 games a year, and I know my star player is the middle linebacker or it's Lawrence Taylor. I mean, we saw any given Sunday. I mean, like when Lawrence Taylor comes like that, but you're trying to get that last. This is your 10th year in the league, and you didn't do well money wise in the beginning. You wasted. Now you're in a position where it's about to end. Not saying it's not their fault that they got put in this spot. But at the same time, if they used their body, if your body was used in that same way and you didn't get anything from it, the NFL knew, no way they knew. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway.
And Swole brings up good points. There's no way that the NFL knew, and they may have not because technology happened. There's no way you could scan brains back then, so they can just play like they didn't know either. And I think
fine. But you're right. Though common sense says if I hit my head against this wall 20 times,
and you wake up an hour later and you don't know what happened, it means this is not good. We don't need to do that again. And you have a headache that lasts you 3 or 4 days, and you can't function right, then yeah. But at the same time, if you're going into the NFL, you know there's a possibility that you're going to get majorly hurt. But the same thing is you can get majorly paid though too. I think it's a trade-off. Would you? All right. What if I told you, all right, Scott, I'm going to give you a 6-year contract. You're going to make. Let's not even go crazy. $10 million total throughout the entire contract, and you're going to have probably about 10 concussions between that. Would you take
one of me?
Exactly. And every one of these guys who are sitting here complaining about it now, that it took that same bet whenever they were 20 years old.
I just think I think people in the league now, or even like relatively kind of, 5 year, we're within probably a 10-year window where science and technology really have advanced to the point to where people knew what was happening. But I think it's more like what Kyle Grayman sent us was, people that are dying now, their life expectancy between 7 and 8. So those were the original NFL people when they didn't even have helmets. So that was in itself. Y'all, now something's wrong with them. I hate to be like that, but you had to know a leather helmet.
But there's a bunch of white dudes that were small, and there's bigger, stronger, faster now. But I'm thinking that it just kind of shows how smart Barry Sanders was.
He's time getting out.
He got out.
Yeah.
Nobody knew why. He didn't say anything. He's undone.
Yeah.
Ricky Williams is doing a lot of stuff with research and yeah, maybe taboo, but he's doing research on marijuana and stuff like that for recovery and everything else. I think he's kind of leading the research on that and showing there might be ways of curing this or helping themselves out. So I don't know. It just shows how far these guys were here have come across.
All right, we're going to take our final break of the evening. Pretty riveting stuff this evening, but we'll take our final break of the evening, and when we return, we'll wrap things up and get you primed for Sports Blitz Live on Channel 3 and Channel 80 statewide from 7 to 9. More of the Sports Blitz Lake Martin Sports Roundup show right after this. Back to the final segment of the the Late Morning Sports Roundup show, live on location again at JR Sports Bar and Grill. Been a pretty interesting show. Had the opportunity to discuss a wide range of topics. I do want to say, just kind of wrapping things up on the CTE conversation. Actually, I take that back. Let's go back to the Kyrie LeBron. We didn't ever get on the Kyrie LeBron, did we?
No.
I don't know. Okay,
No.
It's been one of those shows. Kyrie and LeBron. Who's at fault, you think? Is it LeBron?
Kyrie.
Okay.
He's got to. Why don't he approach LeBron with the issues before he goes this route? I mean, I can't figure out what happened.
I think it really
You won a championship. You played in the finals last year.
He's going to 3 straight finals.
But it's not like he's not getting paid.
Yeah, I mean, just signed an extension before LeBron got there. I think with him, it's more so Kobe is his guy.
Ego.
And it is ego, but at some point you get tired of somebody, you don't want to always, whether it works out or it doesn't work out. Sometimes, just as a man, sometimes you want to just see if you can do your own thing.
He ain't going to be able to do it either.
He may not.
You saw what he did before he got there.
He may not. I saw some too. They were like 4 or 5 games under 500 with him as the premier scorer.
It's because he's a great street ball player.
I mean, he averaged 25 a game last year. Uncle Drew's nice, though.
Of course. Uncle Drew's really nice. But I'm saying, like, he can't carry a franchise.
But the teams he was saying he wanted to be the focal point. The Spurs, he wouldn't be the focal point. The Spurs, he wouldn't be. He wouldn't be with the Timberwolves.
I like to see him in New York.
I'd like to see that Carmelo in first round.
Carmelo, no, I'm saying Carmelo and Porzingis for Kyrie and Love.
Yeah, they'd probably have
Porzingis is the future. Porzingis is top 5 best player in the league in 3 years.
No, man.
You crazy.
He's good. He ain't that good.
Hey, what ain't going to get it done is Derrick Rose ain't going to get it done.
See, that lets you know I think he's good as gone because they wouldn't have brought him in.
And Jose Calderon. He's definitely going.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly. It's finished. I'm just interested to see what they get back in return.
I think Kyrie's worth a major amount of players.
Gotta be.
I think
Not
he's good
picks.
for I want players.
I want picks
I'd
either.
say because if you're Cleveland,
if they get picks, that tells you LeBron's going after this year.
I think he's going anyway.
I think so.
I'm going to get that Laker jersey. Let y'all know. But speaking of being good as going, wrapping things up here on the Late Morning Sports Roundup. Adam and Scott here again at General Sports Bar and Grill as we are each and every Tuesday. So we appreciate you guys tuning in. Get ready for Sports Live from 7 to 9. And again, they'll have some nice guests and some things to talk about as we get ready to start SEC football here in the South. So we'll get ready for that as well as high school football. But for our producer, Michael Forehand, and one of our favorite listeners, Kyle Graham, and my co-host, Adam Blankenship, my name is Scott Hardy, saying thanks for joining us. See you next week.